Poolbeg Pharma has beefed up its team and one that it is familiar with. David Allmond joins the team as Chief Business Officer, the position he had at Amryt Pharma. Now, if you don't remember, Amryt Pharma was acquired for £1.5 billion last year. We'll find out the significance of that from David. So, David, is the dream team now in place?
I'm a humble guy. I don't call myself the dream team, but what I would say is that yes, we know within Poolbeg with Carhal's vision and Ian's vision, they've attracted myself and John on the legal side and Laura on the clinical side to come across, because I think it's in my DNA really to to look at opportunities for building something, making a difference, leaving a legacy, and really truly impacting patients. And I only get these opportunities by getting in on the front end. And Amryt was a fantastic journey and story. I think we helped numerous patients worldwide, and the value creation followed. And that's what we're going to do with Poolbeg.
And for investors new to Poolbeg and unsure about what the relationship is between Amryt and Poolbeg, it's all to do with the founder.
Yeah, so Carl was an early founder investor in Amryt to get it going, and Joe Wiley, Rory came in as Rory Nealon came in as CEO, CFO, and led the charge, to build the company from an executive standpoint. So there was a strong following and understanding and shareholding at that stage. And I think, having seen that unfold, I think Carl would love to see that happen again. And what I find is when you need somebody who's got the vision, you need somebody who can support getting access to capital, and make those decisions and take some risk. And there are plenty of people out there who like to talk about these things, but I think Cahill means this, and we're going to give this a real go.
So with so many of the Amryt team now part of Poolbeg Pharma, are you trying to replicate the Amryt model?
Well, only insofar. I mean, the Amryt model. Let's perhaps genericize that a little bit. What you're looking for in this scenario really is high unmet medical need in the marketplace. So that something that's really not served. It could be likely an orphan population or rare disease population who don't have any treatment, or they have limited treatment. You're looking for then innovative technology to tackle that unmet need. And often these cases are genetic diseases, they're chronic diseases. So that once they're on effective therapies, the patients stay on. There's still a willingness to pay worldwide to try and help patients with rare disease. And then in addition to that, with the Amryt story, you're looking for focused and targeted customer groups that you can reach as a small company. You're not looking for GP markets or your mass markets where you need a big organization. So you're looking for the sort of magic formula, and that's the parallel in this case.
So I'm wondering what elements specifically of the Amryt model you'll be incorporating into the Poolbeg strategy.
Well, so what we'll be looking to do is we already have assets in Poolbeg which are pretty exciting. So there's some out licensing partnering activity for some earlier stage assets. But what we're really doing now is looking at late stage, phase 3 or filed or approved orphan and rare assets that allow us to, if you like, get off to the races and start to build commercial capability, build income, and build contribution, so that we're profitable, in the not too distant term. And that paralleled with attracting talent. And what you find in the pharmaceutical industry, if you find people like me who've been knocking around for 30 years in this business, there's plenty of us who actually like that kind of environment where we're really hands-on making something happen. who have become a little less interested in the more larger bureaucratic machinery, which I don't criticize, by the way. It's just not for me. So I think there's parallels of talent and of going commercial and then getting an organic growth and building in additional assets thereafter.
Okay, let me just check my notes here because Amryt was valued at $1.5 million US when you joined in 2016, which seems like a lifetime ago. 6 years later, that valuation for Amryt was $250 million US. Now, let's go to Poolbeg. Today, Poolbeg is valued at circa £40 million. So what's the plan for Poolbeg to achieve the same trajectory that Amryt enjoyed up till quite recently?
Well, I think if you which we are seeing, by the way, we are just to be very clear, we are seeing assets that we should be able to partner with. They could be in licensing, it could be M&A activity to get started with commercial assets. If you then are a very good steward of capital, which I believe I am, and I believe Cathal and the team are, and we can get the asset to the patients, reimbursed, and get moving, I think what you'll see is that, you know, not only revenue growth, but contribution will encourage investors to see that, you know, to see the future as bright, and that's what drove Amryt's value. I actually did the first deal. I sold Amryt its first drug because the drug was being pulled out of Europe. Unfortunately, I gave it the new home into Amryt, and then I joined Amryt a bit later and made that drug rapidly profitable and got it into the hands of the right patients across Europe, Middle East, Africa. And it was that beginnings, coupled with a more contributory assets later on, that drove the revenue and thus the valuation. And this was it wasn't vanity and pure revenue. It was profit to show the outside where we could run a lean ship and drive growth.
That's fascinating. I didn't know that serendipitous element to your career, this sort of poacher turned gamekeeper thing. That's fascinating. That so right. So you know the business from outside as well as inside, but you are one of the custodians of cash for Poolbeg. So what's
Sure.
the plan for cash conservation while you seek those high value programs alongside the existing portfolio?
Yeah, there's a couple of points there. One is if you look at Poolbeg's recent history, it's been incredibly strong on being judicious with expenditure. Bringing in new talent does impact that, but that's been offset really by change of talent to some extent, right? So it's not all incremental cost. And watch the spend very carefully. Only do the necessary. Look for non-dilutive capital because we have wonderful assets already in-house that we can partner, and then look for the right deal really to then invest in the new vehicle. And so if there are assets out there that we could do an in-licensing, that's a licensing deal. If there are assets or companies out there where it looks like it's to combine entities, and whether one day we could get to list in other jurisdictions. We're currently listed on the AIM in London. You know, it just depends what's out there, but those eventualities are another parallel to Amryt. That's, you know, Amryt went from listed in London, dual listed on the NASDAQ eventually after the acquisition of Adhere and then listing, which is where John has deep experience from a legal perspective, and then delisting in London in the end and being a NASDAQ listed company. So that wasn't an evolution of Amryt, and the access to capital in the US is clearly higher, but it just depends on what the deals are and how that sort of evolution plays out.
That's a tasty cliffhanger, and we'll leave it at that until you and I meet again. David Allmond, thank you
Yeah,
very much indeed for your time.
great to meet you. Thanks, Sarah.